If you are an African in the diaspora, this message is for you. You've thought about investing back home, maybe not seriously, but the idea keeps returning. Every headline tells you Africa is risky. Very few explain where opportunity is quietly forming. This video is not about fear, it is about preparation. There's a specific mistake almost everyone makes when they look at the continent during hard economic times. You likely believe that when the global economy slows down or when inflation rises in Africa, business stops. You believe that the safest thing to do is wait for the storm to pass. But while you are waiting, a completely different group of people is doing something else. They are not pulling back, they are digging in. And they are targeting 3 specific areas that do not care about inflation, politics, or global recessions. Right now, you are probably holding on to your capital. You are looking at the exchange rates in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, or South Africa, and you see volatility. You see currencies struggling against the dollar or the pound. Your instinct, the instinct taught to you by Western financial models, is to seek safety. You believe safety means exiting the market or buying land and leaving it empty. But here's what is actually happening. While the luxury economy in Africa is suffering, the essential economy is hardening. There are businesses that are becoming recession-proof because they solve problems that cannot be postponed. In this video, we are going to walk through the 3 specific sectors that sustain African economies when everything else is shaking. You will learn why the boring economy is where the real wealth is being built. You will learn a framework for distinguishing between a good idea and a defensive asset. And I will show you why the wait-and-see approach is actually the highest risk strategy you can take. Let's talk about why you haven't moved yet. It is not just about logic, it is about the weight you carry. You work hard for your money in the diaspora. Whether you are in London, Houston, Toronto, or Dubai, every dollar or pound represents hours of your life away from home. You have dealt with systemic barriers, late nights, and the pressure to succeed. When you think about sending that capital back to Africa, you feel a knot in your stomach. Maybe you have tried before. You sent money to a cousin to build a house, and the foundation never got laid. Maybe you invested in a friend's startup and the updates stopped coming after 6 months. Or maybe you just watch the news. You see headlines about debt defaults, cool rumors, or soaring fuel prices. You feel a responsibility to protect your family's future. You don't want to be the person who threw it all away on a dream. This fear is valid. It is rational. It is the result of loving your hard-earned stability. But this fear creates a blind spot. It makes you view Africa only through the lens of loss. You start thinking that the only way to win is to not play. You freeze. And while you freeze, you watch others, often large multinational corporations or returning expatriates who understand the terrain, taking positions in the market. You wonder, what do they know that I don't? They know that volatility is not the same as unviability. They know that even in a crisis, 1.4 billion people do not stop living. They do not stop needing. The hesitation you feel comes from looking at the wrong metrics. You are looking at the surface waves, the politics, the currency dips, rather than the deep currents underneath. Fear is not the problem. The problem is that you are looking for safety in the wrong places. You are looking for a smooth path in a rugged terrain, instead of building a rugged vehicle. Let's look at the reality of the African economy right now, without the sugarcoating and without the doom-mongering. We are in a cycle of global contraction. Interest rates in the West are high, which pulls capital away from Africa. This creates a liquidity crunch. For many African nations, importing goods has become incredibly expensive because of the strong dollar. This sounds bad. If you are selling luxury handbags or imported champagne in Lagos or Nairobi, it is bad. The middle class is being squeezed. Disposable income is shrinking. But this pressure is creating a massive shift in behavior. Because imports are becoming too expensive, there is a forced reliance on local production and essential value chains. The fluff is dying. The businesses that relied on hype, expensive marketing, and imported prestige are collapsing. What is left standing? The businesses that sustain life. We're seeing a transition from an aspirational economy, things people want, to a survival economy, things people need. In this video, we are going to walk through the 3 specific sectors that sustain African economies when everything else is shaking. The 3 sectors are thriving not because the economy is booming, but because they are the floor of the economy. They are the foundation that cannot be removed. When the currency devalues, people stop buying new cars. They do not stop eating. When inflation rises, people cancel Netflix subscriptions. They do not stop buying medicine. When the power grid fails, businesses stop expanding. They do not stop paying for the diesel or solar that keeps their doors open. The current reality is that the market is clearing out the tourists. It is removing the businesses that added no real value. This is the most dangerous time for speculators, but it is the most clarifying time for builders. But knowing this macroeconomic theory is not enough. You need to understand how this looks on the ground. You need to see the difference between a business that looks good on a spreadsheet and one that survives a crisis. Let me tell you a story about two investors. Let's call them David and Isaac. Both live in the UK. Both saved up roughly £50,000 to invest back home in West Africa. David wanted what many in the diaspora want: passive income and status. He looked at the trends in 2019. He saw the Africa Rising headlines. He decided to invest in a high-end event center and a boutique Airbnb block in a capital city. On paper, it looked brilliant. The tourism numbers were up. The year of return was happening. He built a beautiful structure. He imported furniture from Turkey. He set his prices in dollars. Then the economic downturn hit. Inflation spiked. The local middle class couldn't afford his event center for weddings anymore. Tourists pulled back due to global recession fears. The cost of running his generators to keep the AC on for the few guests he had ate up all his profit. David is now trying to sell the property at a loss just to stop the bleeding. Now look at Isaac. Isaac looked at the same market, but Isaac was cynical about the hype. He asked himself, if the economy crashes tomorrow, what will people still pay for? Isaac took his £50,000 and looked at the food supply chain. He didn't buy a farm. Farming is high risk for a remote investor. Instead, he invested in processing and storage. He realized that 40% of tomatoes and peppers in his region were rotting before they reached the market because of bad roads and no cold storage. He built a small solar-powered cold storage and a simple processing line to turn fresh tomatoes into paste. When inflation hit, the price of imported tomato paste from Italy tripled. Suddenly, the local market couldn't afford the imported stuff. They had to buy local. Isaac's product was not glamorous. It didn't look like a tech startup. It was messy, sticky, and boring. But as the currency devalued, his margins actually improved because his costs were local, but his product was replacing an expensive import. Retailers were begging him for stock. David built for the best-case scenario. Isaac built for the worst-case scenario. David bet on disposable income. Isaac bet on hunger. This is the story of the African market right now. The businesses that are recession-proofing the continent are not the ones you see on Instagram. They are the ones operating in the background, solving the unsexy problems of efficiency, food security, and health.
So, how do you find your Isaac opportunity? You need a framework. Before you put a single dollar into any project or business in Africa, you must run it through the essential friction framework. It consists of 3 questions. Question 1. Is this a vitamin or a painkiller? A vitamin is nice to have. It improves health over time. A painkiller solves an immediate, unbearable problem. In a recession, people stop buying vitamins. They never stop buying painkillers. Is the business you are looking at solving an immediate pain? Question 2. Does it rely on the import premium? If the business relies heavily on importing raw materials from China or the US to sell to a local African market, you are exposed to currency risk. If the currency drops 20%, your costs go up 20%. The best recession-proof businesses source locally and sell locally or export. They are currency neutral or currency positive. Question 3. Is the demand inelastic? Inelastic demand means that even if the price goes up, people still buy it because they have no choice. This leads us to the 3 sectors that pass this test right now. Sector 1. Agro-processing, not just farming. Africa holds 60% of the world's arable land, yet imports billions in food. The gap is not in growing, it is in value addition. Turning raw cassava into flour, turning fruit into juice, cold chain logistics. This is the ultimate defensive asset. Sector 2. Decentralized energy. State grids are struggling. Businesses cannot function without power. Companies that provide solar solutions for commercial use, factories, small businesses, are becoming the new utility companies. They are selling the oxygen of business. Sector 3. Affordable healthcare and generics.
As populations grow and age, and as imported brand-name drugs become too expensive, the local production of generic medicines and affordable clinics is exploding. This is a sector with zero correlation to the stock market. I want to pause here for a second. I know what some of you are thinking. These sectors sound hard. They sound like a lot of work. I just wanted to buy some land or stocks. I understand that hesitation. We are conditioned to want easy passive income. The idea of dealing with logistics or factories or supply chains feels overwhelming, especially from the diaspora. But ask yourself, are you looking for a hobby or are you looking to build generational leverage? I want you to take a moment and comment below. What is the one sector you have been looking at? Is it real estate? Is it tech? And after hearing this, does it pass the essential friction test? Be honest, there's no judgment here. We are all learning. Now that we have the framework, how do you actually execute this? What not to do? Do not try to start these businesses from scratch if you are not on the ground. Do not try to be the CEO from 5,000 miles away. That is the quickest way to lose your capital. Do not chase government contracts. In a recession, governments are the slowest payers. You want customers who pay cash daily or weekly, regular people and private businesses. Do not scale too fast. Debt is dangerous when interest rates are 25% or 30%. What to do? 1. Look for brownfield investments. Find businesses that already exist in these sectors, a small processing plant, a local pharmacy chain, a logistics fleet, that are struggling due to a lack of working capital. They have the customers, they have the structure, they just need liquidity. Investing in them is safer than starting from zero. 2. Focus on B2B. Business to business. Instead of selling to the final consumer, sell to the businesses that serve them. Provide the packaging for the food company. Provide the solar maintenance for the hospital. It is stable and predictable. 3. Test small. If you are interested in agro-processing, don't build a factory. Buy the raw product, pay a local factory to process it for you, white labeling, and see if you can sell it. Prove the market before you buy the bricks. We've talked about sectors, we've talked about strategy, but I promise you one final insight, the one thing that reframes everything. Here it is. Recession is not a stop sign, it is a filter. In the West, we view recession as a malfunction of the system. In emerging markets like Africa, volatility is a feature of the system, not a bug. The wealthy families in Africa, the dynasties that have lasted for 50 years, did not build their wealth during the boom times, they built it during the hard times. Why? Because when things get hard, the competition leaves, the tourists go home, the scammers move on to the next hype, the market becomes quiet. If you can build a system that works when the economy is broken, you become untouchable when the economy fixes itself. If you can make a profit selling food or energy when inflation is high and roads are bad, imagine what happens to your margins when the currency stabilizes and the roads improve. You explode. The mistake you are making is waiting for the perfect conditions to invest. You are waiting for Africa to look like Switzerland before you put your money in. If you wait for that, you'll be waiting forever. And when it finally happens, the opportunity will be gone because the margins will be razor thin. The risk is not in the chaos. The risk is in thinking you can wait out the chaos. The chaos is the ladder. You have a choice. You can keep your capital in a savings account in the diaspora, earning 4% while inflation eats 5%, safe in the knowledge that you never took a risk. Or you can look at the continent not with charity and not with fear, but with the eyes of a strategic builder. The 3 sectors, food, energy, health, are waiting. They are not asking for your charity, they are asking for your competence. Don't rush. Think about what we discussed today. Look at your portfolio. Look at where you are directing your energy. If you want to understand more about how to vet the people you might partner with in these sectors, you should watch this video next. It breaks down the psychology of trust in business. I'll see you there.